Hello everyone, today we're going to do a little bit of troubleshooting. This quad and I have been tortured together between a fire and then rebuilding it, and then now it has the death rolls or flip of death, FOD, DR, whatever you want to call them. And this one's quite curious because after I got it rebuilt, everything was flying fairly fine, and as you can see from the video up here in the corner, I did some rolls, I did some flips, and everything was going well. Then all of a sudden I do another flip and it just spins out of control. And from that moment forward, this quad with these components could not do a flip or roll without spinning out of control. So typically what you do is you start replacing parts. And I didn't necessarily want to do that because, well, one, I only had one of these stacks to work with. This is the stack out of the AR Fun Pro. It's one of the few micro supposedly 25 amp ESCs or 20 amp. I can't remember now. That's all irrelevant. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the steps because I have now fixed this quad and I wanted to share the steps that I went through. None of these are original. I found the various steps all over the internet. I just tried different things and I thought that might be helpful to bring them all together. Hopefully this video won't be all that long. So the first thing we need to do is take off the props. There, that's better. Now we need to make this smaller and we need to load the Betaflight application. Going to plug in our USB cable, of course. Connect to Betaflight. We're going to go down here to motors. We're not going to calibrate or anything. If I can get this slider to come down, there we go. And all we're going to do is take a battery. I've got a looks like a 4S Bonka here, 460 milliamp. We're going to plug that in. Now that we have the battery plugged in, we're going to check the box to make sure we can spin our motors because we have the props off as the warning states. We're going to click on motor 1. You can click on any of these, but I suggest working through all of them. And to test the motors, one of the things that I was going to do was just to see if I had a stuttering motor or if it was an ESC. And let's start with the motor because it's easiest. So on my keyboard, which you can't see, I'm going to hold it down with my left hand here, and I'm going to hit the home and the in key, and it should go to max throttle and then to minimum throttle, back and forth, back and forth. Now we go over to motor 2, and we do the same thing. And you work through all your motors that way. Now you can see in mine it's a little bit delayed. It's because I've got screen recording going on. If I turn that off, this actually works a little bit more fluidly. So don't take that into account. So what you're looking for is a jittery or stuttering motor, and that may indicate that the motor's bad. But you don't want to necessarily stop there. If you get one particular motor that responds differently than all the others, then you should take that motor, unmount it from the arm, and move it to a different spot and solder it to a different ESC. In this case, we have a 4-in-1 ESC, so we just solder it to a different spot on the ESC, and we see if it does the same thing. If it does the same thing, then that tells us that the motor's fine. If it doesn't do it anymore, that does tell us that the motor's an issue. So the next thing that we need to go into, and I found this just kind of through dumb luck, we need to disconnect from Betaflight, and we need to bring up BL Heli. Go ahead and connect to it and read our setup. And this is a little bit trial and error. But you see here on the startup power, and how it says 0.31. In my case, I think the default was around 0.25, and I had read somewhere that they said to just try different startup power. So I immediately went to the lowest one, and that one worked right off the bat. So that's something else you need to look at, is does motor startup power, does that dictate how your machine flies, and therefore the flips of death or the roll of death does no longer occur. You should also check the calibration on your ESCs to see if one of them is way out of alignment. And if they're really close, like in this case, you can see they're all pretty close. If you're using D-Shot, this will be fine. If you're not using D-Shot, you probably will have different values. If you're using multi-shot, you'll have different values yet. But you should definitely keep in mind the values that you see may be different than what you see in front of you now. And just as a proof of concept that just these couple steps fixed it without having to replace any parts, let's take it outside, do some line of sight flips.
Kind of got away from me there. I need to adjust my glasses. There we go. The glasses adjusted. Needs tuning still. You can see the bounce. But there you go. It solved it for me. Hopefully it will you too.
There we go. If you have any other suggestions, steps that you've taken to overcome something like this, please leave those in the section down below and we can all benefit from that. I really don't have anything else to share. The review, if you're looking at this particular vehicle, this is another Tomo Quads frame. This is the CSX Komodo Dragon, and it will be coming up relatively soon as we get some more dry weather. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.